And we're live. Welcome to the Best in Slot podcast, a Warcraft podcast by the community for the community. I'm your main host, Sparty. I'm here with my co-host, Midgettes. Midgettes, how are you on this fine Monday? We missed yesterday's podcast, so it's a Monday.
Well, we missed it because of the Super Bowl, which I heard was horrible.
The superb owl, yes. That joke never... We love the superb owl.
But I'm doing well and looking forward to our topic today. I can't wait to hear more about it.
Yeah.
So what are we talking about?
Well, it's episode 56. We'll be talking about 10 minutes of goodness, as it's something we all need in this day and age. 10 minutes of good, positive stuff. And it's pretty relevant to Warcraft. It's pretty relevant to your day in and day out lives. So yeah, I'm excited to talk about it. It's a good, I don't know, it's a feel-good episode, and I think everyone needs it, once in a while.
I think today's probably a really good day for it.
Oh,
But
absolutely.
first we have to ruin my night and do your joke thing.
Okay, well, I know people have been getting sick, and it's been the flu season, and it's really important to talk about this. And it's a bit of a PSA for all of you out there that you're sick or whatever. So what's the difference between bird flu and swine flu? Do you know?
No.
Well, one requires tweetment, and the other ointment.
Oh, good grief.
Oh, I love it.
I can't even laugh to that one.
Yeah,
I just can't. It's definitely a dad joke.
Yeah, no, it's a fantastic joke.
Well, when one of my loudest agreeers about about your dad jokes comes out and says, "I'm having a bad day. I need some dad jokes."
Just give him one of mine.
All right.
There you go. Perfect. All right, so it's been the first week of Mythic rating, right? That's crazy. Like it's only been 1 week of Mythic rating. It feels like it's been much more, but the race is nearly over, right? Like there's how many guilds?
I don't know. Did you see the funny part though? I laughed. Did you see the Warcraft devs tweet?
Oh, earlier today?
Where they applied a hotfix that unintentionally increased the difficulty of the Jaina encounter.
Yeah,
I just laughed.
Yeah, so for those of you not familiar with the World First race, there are currently about 27 guilds currently working on Mythic Jaina for a World First. In terms of difficulty, it's pretty far up there in terms of challenging encounter, and you need the gear and that kind of stuff. But what's made it really difficult is there's been hotfixes applied, and some of them are bug fixes. Other ones are not so bug fixes, both to Stormwall Blockade as well as Jaina. So part of the reason that there's a bit of a kerfuffle there with the top guilds is they're progressing, and suddenly the encounter changes because there's an elemental that you need to interrupt and you need to kill it. But if you interrupt it non-stop, it doesn't cast a frost nova at 100 energy, which is sort of the way it works on normal. But on heroic and mythic, it was not working as intended. So suddenly, after days and days of progression, they make the fight much more difficult. And there's a world first race going on right now, and it's Limit and Method and Exorcist and Peace and all these guilds working on it. So it's a really inopportune time for this hotfix to have gone in. I don't know what's a good analogy. It's it's a 1,000-meter race you're running here, but suddenly you have to do a shot put at the same time.
Tree in front of you.
Yeah, suddenly there's a big tree, right, and you have to dodge trees now. But you've only trained for doing the 1,000-meter however many times. So it's interesting. Yeah, and
Well, I don't know. The thing I think that, and I mean, I knew it. I knew that there was a head start.
Yeah.
But this go around, Limit went all the way through all of the 8 bosses before. I thought it was going to be over before Method even got a chance at first.
I know.
And I thought, how is that a race?
It's a super quick sprint.
Everybody keeps telling me that, well, they have the more bugs and blah blah blah, and it's the way it's always been. Okay, well, the other team got a 16-hour head start.
Mm-hmm.
How is that a race?
Yeah, well, I mean, the North Americans need a head start, right, in order to beat the EU. Like that's the only way.
Well, we haven't beat them yet. We may. I thought for sure we were going to. I would have been really curious what would have happened if Limit would have cleared all 9 bosses before Method even got a chance. What happens to the world race then?
Yeah, well, again, like WoW Progress and all these things, they're these artificial or arbitrary numbers that we've made up, right, in terms of ranking. Well, there's no such thing as fair. Real life isn't fair, and neither is this game, right? None of it is at all fair, and what's going to happen is tomorrow, well, US resets, and US is going to get a whole full set of mythic gear. Limit's going to re-clear because they made the mistake last year to not re-clear and they extended. Whereas Method, they may still be stuck on Jaina. I think their best percent was 9% or so. Limit apparently is at 13. But Limit's going to have that extra bit of gear, and they may have what it takes. I mean, they may have that extra push because they have that 1 day earlier reset, right? And
Okay, well, it may not be fair, but let's at least, I mean, if we're going to have a race, let's have a real race. I'm sorry. I take issue with, okay, so number one, if they've got a 16-hour head start,
hmm
and tomorrow they're going to have another 16-hour head start with more gear, how is that even a race?
yeah,
I
yeah,
just I don't get it. So the fact that the US hasn't won with our 16-hour head start that's been there forever, um, tells me that it's sort of like, just because another guild raids 20 or 30 hours and gets to server first, I don't look at them as necessarily the better team. So I'm not sure, even if Limit got it with that 16-hour head start, that I'm going to think they're the better team.
yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's all fair points, and there's a couple quick anecdotes there. Death Jesters, my guild is actually server first guild that has stuck to their actual raid schedule and not added extra hours.
Not in
We are the server
no,
first.
I want you to know, Sev started a minute early tonight.
Oh, damn it, Sev! And the other thing is, for those of you unhappy or are happy about the world first race, the reason it is unfair is because of me. And you're like, oh, Sparty, that's so narcissistic. Like, what are you even talking about? Well, I mean, we've talked about this in the past, but back in the day, about 14 years, what year is it now? Yes, about 14 years ago, just shy of 14 years, we did something called cascading instances. And before it was considered an exploit, it was really clever use of game mechanics, and essentially you were able to almost double up on loot with how the lockouts worked. For instance, if you started clearing on a Thursday, your instance would reset on a Thursday or late Wednesday, and so it would always be these 6 and 7 day timers, and people were able to really maximize the efficiency of their loot. And eventually, Blizzard was fed up with this as people were selling their instances and selling their lockouts to the top guilds back then. And they said, hey, well, now US resets on Tuesday, EU resets on Wednesday. And here we are. I did it.
Okay, well, next year let's let EU reset on Tuesday and the
Oh,
US reset on
maybe
Wednesday,
you what?
and see who actually wins.
Yeah.
I'm sorry that, if nothing else, that makes me cheer for the EU teams more.
You know what? It's never going to be fair because even if they release them on the exact same day, well, EU, well, what time are they going to raid? They're going to raid like at midnight? Are they going to raid at 2 o'clock in the afternoon? So the US teams have to start raiding at 3 a.m. What does it mean exactly? It's never going to be fair. You have to try to make it as fair as you can and just go from there. But yeah, let's move on.
Well, we'll have to move on, but I'm still curious. I'm waiting for the day that, a U.S. team, Blizzard better keep making at least that last boss last at
hmm
least a week. Otherwise, they're going to have a real big uproar.
Yeah, this tier in general has been a really quick sprint, and the guilds that have put in the extra hours, so the guilds that say, "Hey, we're raiding 3 days, but we're going to raid 6 days this week." If you front loaded a lot of your raiding, you've been really successful because the bosses are not that difficult comparatively to other ones. There's not a lot of huge gear checks and that kind of stuff. So guilds are putting in the hours and they're getting it done, which is good because this tier is partly a lot of fun, but there's also like mounts and that kind of stuff to be had. So I don't know.
So you're going to move on to the pig mount.
Yeah, we're moving on. Anyway, so the pig mount. Speaking of, yeah, the pig mount is out. Hogris, the swine of good fortune. Have you bought this pig yet?
No, because I like the last store mount, and I'm not sure I'm going to buy the pig mount, just because I like the last store mount. I like my Vulpine familiar.
Well, it's funny because this is the first year I'm actually sitting out of raiding and not doing mythic raid. Like the first tier in 14 years that I will not be completing content when it's current, and it's a weird feeling. And I said, oh yeah, I'll get back to raiding. When pigs fly, and here we are, and there is now a flying pig. So I don't think my wife will be happy.
Has nothing to do with the Chinese New Year and everything to do with Sparty coming.
Oh, I mean, absolutely. That's of course. Thanks,
Just
Liz.
checking. So, speaking of world races,
hmm
the war mode buff against all odds went down to 15%. I told you they were going to break our bonus.
Well, I mean, it makes sense because the Alliance were just destroying the Horde, and the Horde got really scared, so they disabled War Mode, and now there's not that much of a Horde advantage in terms of numbers.
Oh,
So
come on, Sparty. Even with all the shenanigans last week, we just dumped down to 15%.
yeah, you know what? I mean, I think it's been intended. That balance is there, and honestly, I've had a lot of fun with War Mode. And sometimes it's a very peaceful War Mode where I do a world quest and the Horde does a world quest. And sometimes I'm waiting there for a world quest and the Horde attack me. All right, so then I kill them, and then I might corpse camp them for a little bit because they started it. And here we're just trying to be friends and do our world quest, but they started and they thought they could 2-on-1
Okay,
me.
corpse count or flight point corpse or flight point corpse count?
Oh no, like I'll kill
Camp.
them near a world quest person, and then I'll just wait for them to respawn and just kill them again because they need to have
Well,
been taught
because
their lesson.
last week we were all sitting at flight points
Well,
because we're awesome like
we
that.
were a welcoming party for the Horde. They were not used to it. So yeah, so I mean, it's been fun. You haven't been playing much with More Mode, have you?
No, I turned it on last week for my pretty
Oh,
little piece of gear, and then I turned it right back off, and it's not going back on.
okay, well, fair enough.
There was no sense of accomplishment in that, but
Yeah, no,
yeah.
I know. You feel dirty, you know, killing the Horde over and over and over. Sorry, Horde guys. I mean, we've been taking it for a long time, and now we're giving it for a little bit, and that's how the medicine tastes. Um, so what else was there? So there was some, we did some War Mode stuff. What else is out in the community?
Well, there was another interview with Eon about the state of the game.
Uh huh.
So I thought it was interesting. I guess I think that, and you and I had sort of chatted about this a little bit earlier. I think one of the things that comes out right now is no matter what they say, nobody likes it.
Yeah.
Blizzard's
Well.
sort of on the hot seat for anything they say, but they're general responses that sound good. But are they really addressing the problems? And those were some of your concerns. I thought it was a great interview. And the part that I took interest in was it was talking about some of the internet. The internet is a place that has become a bit more polarized
Mm-hmm.
and it's become more about getting anger out there and less about finding common ground. And I thought that was an interesting statement because I believe it's true. And what would be the common ground? We don't like the game. They do. What's the common ground?
Yeah, I mean, I think it was a great interview overall. Having listened to many of these interviews and been playing for so long, you get a little bit jaded in terms of, some of the same response of, we're looking into it, we're looking to make this better. I get it, fine, but, let's make it better, right? Like, let's just do it. And at the same time, they don't get enough praise for the good things they do. But they try to address the same
Well,
things.
does anybody?
Well, exactly, right? But they tried to address some really good things where, again, there's so many different types of players out there that you can't please everybody, right? We'll talk about the respecs here in a second, and some people are going to be fine with them because they're a bit of a tax in terms of Azurite, but other ones hate them because they're respecking and they're costing like 80,000 gold or 1,000,000 gold to respec, and it's crazy. But yeah, I mean, between the pet battlers and the RPers and the PvPers and the raiders and the casuals and everybody in between, you're not going to please everybody at once. But again, it's an interview that they know there's issues with the game and they're looking to address them. And sometimes there's no quick solutions, right? You hope for the best, or sometimes you take a bit of a break from the game and come back when hopefully it's a little bit better.
Well, and for me, so I'm not changing professions, and I'm not respecting 1,000 times
Hmm.
either. Um, and so mine I think is at like 10 gold. That was only because I wanted to move it to disc instead of holy.
Yeah, and it goes
I,
down pretty quickly. Like I think every day or something, it decays in half. So it goes down pretty quick. And in terms of respec costs, like I haven't gone over 20 gold, I don't think. And it was when I was doing progression, switching between a couple bosses for one trait prior to 8.1, or was it whichever patch when I was working on Uldir progression. I mean, it was like 50 gold or 80 gold or something like that. It was silly. But now, like again, these top raiders, well, they're min-maxing, right? They have this 400 item level gear or 415 item level gear, and they need to respec it for the best traits for that specific spec, right? Because some of them are spec-based traits, and okay, if you're respecting every single boss, that's going to add up. It's going to add up quite a bit in terms of
absolutely.
heroic and mythic. But is this system tailored towards those people? And we sort of joke around, okay, well, why don't you just get more Azurite gear, right? And that's really the intended purpose for most players. For mythic raiders out there, we're not the intended audience for this, right? It's supposed to be that penalty for if you want to min max, well, you're gonna have to pay the cost, right? It's not an issue of respecking; it's an issue of min maxing your gear, right? Because respec costs are a thing of the past, right? There used to be 50 gold or
Well,
whatever it was.
I seem to recall when I was rating more focused, and the weekend team isn't as focused as when I was rating prior to coming to Death Jesters. I seem to recall reforging back in the day,
Mm-hmm.
spending a fortune. I mean, because every time I got a new piece of gear, I had to reforge all of these pieces of gear
Oh, I
to
know.
the best thing, and so I was spending thousands of gold every raid week every time I got a new piece of gear.
Yeah,
So
yeah, and I think maybe on the flip side, partly like a bit of a tax is okay. So we had a bit of a consistent reforge cost, right? Back in the day, it wouldn't scale up, whereas here with Azurite, it does scale up. And again, these guys, it's 80,000 gold to respec. Sure, they have millions of gold within the guild bank, but at the same time, it's expensive. So maybe the consensus is okay. We need to find some kind of middle ground. If people want to respec, well, let's just do it at 100 gold per respec or 1,000 gold per respec or something, which is going to hurt the casual players, but some of the raiders that are respecing not so much. And on the flip side, as you get more Azurite gear, you're never going to have to respec again because you're going to have all those pieces. And me
right,
personally, between holy and protection spec, I'm not respecting. Like, yeah, you know what? I'm going to use a 380 piece of gear instead of a 390 piece because I don't want to respec. And I think that's what most people are like. They don't want to pay the extra cost or spend the
exactly,
extra time.
exactly. So for my off spec, I'm using the lower piece of gear.
Yeah, for
So
sure.
again, that's where most of my costs. The one thing that I thought was interesting in the article, and I don't necessarily disagree with it. And he said, there is a bright future ahead with the majority of the Battle for Azeroth's patch content still
Hmm.
to come. If you think back to this time in Legion, there was much more to follow. The only counter I would have to it is this time in Legion, I was so busy trying to get to the first AP goal or my
Yeah, I
artifact or
know.
whatever. I had so much to do that I didn't notice. And I think that may be what's different.
Yeah, and you know what? There was one other really disappointing answer. So everyone loved the Mage Tower, right? I mean, everybody pretty much loved the Mage Tower. Those of you listening, whether you're a casual player or a raider, it was a challenge. Whenever you did it, it was cool and fun, and eventually they unlocked it for everybody, and that was awesome. They liked it in the past, but they don't want to add it to the formula. I think they totally should. I think they should find a way to make this damn Mage Tower work, and whether it be a different appearance or something, or a different reward, give us more rewards. Whether it's Mythic Pluses, it's whatever. We want those kinds of things, and it was really perfect there because you had all these appearances for your artifact. Maybe it's
Right.
now it's appearances for I don't know, like your horses or your heirloom gear. Something would be really cool, or achievements even like proving grounds to get it done. So we'll see.
Well, and I think they use their normal response of it will be based on when it fits into the
Yeah.
story. And there's good things, and sometimes there's too much of good things. It could be it wouldn't have been as well received this go around. You
Mm-hmm.
never know.
Yeah.
But you know, I think that overall, I've seen improvements. I still believe that I'll continue. I will judge BFA, and I've said this before. I will judge BFA at the end of the expansion. I wasn't as I'm kind of the oddball here. I wasn't that fond of Legion. My
Mm-hmm.
favorite part of Legion was the actual class halls. Legion is one of my least favorite X packs, actually.
Really? That's
Yes.
I had no idea.
Yeah. So mostly because so much of what I enjoy behind in the game, they put behind dungeons and raiding. So my professions and
Yeah. Okay, that's fair.
everything
Yeah.
that I needed to do, that I enjoy doing on all my alts, and I didn't get to my alts until almost the end of the expansion, and then I rushed through them, so I didn't really get to enjoy them either. So part of what I enjoy in Warcraft is leveling my different alts and working on my professions, and they put all of that gated behind dungeon and raid content, and most of those tunes I wouldn't step foot in a normal dungeon. I didn't go do the rest of my profession dungeon quests until the artifact had powered enough that I could solo normal and go do it
Mm.
by myself.
Yeah, and again, that's going back to the article of you're not going to please everybody, and for most of us as listeners, as raiders, we loved Legion. It was awesome, and yeah, it had a couple issues, early tier and balancing stuff, and some of us hated Legendary system. But for a player like Midgets, it's not her favorite expansion because it gutted some of her favorite parts of the game, and they were not as accessible as she would have liked it, right? And you know what? You're not going to please everybody, and hopefully, there's a mixed bag for BFA for everybody, but.
We can only hope. But moving
Exactly.
on, the Dark Moon Fair is this week.
Ah, yes. And so I need to get more tokens to get a stupid blimp mount, which I've been like I every time it comes around, like I need people, guys, if you're listening, can you guys send me those little blue quest things so I can just turn them in and get some tokens cuz that would be awesome.
You do
Um
know you get those if you do dungeons.
yeah, I mean I'll do some dungeons. I need to finish off my damn alchemy
If you do
trinket
your
at the
time
dirty
walking,
casual I
you get
am.
enough. If you do your time walkings every month, you have enough for. You get almost all of them
Who
before
has
the
the time for
start.
time walking? Really? I don't know.
Me.
Apparently a bunch of people do. We have a guildie. So we have a guildie who this week has done 400 and was it 402 world quests? Like that's crazy. 402 world quests. The thing, guys, oftentimes you just do emissaries. That's 4 world quests. He's done 402, and typically each week you come out. Sorry, the game has 385 to like 425 world quests actually dropping. I'm pretty sure that includes the incursions, but that's crazy. And what does the math out to be? Something like 33 hours of world quests. I don't know where the math comes from, but yeah,
Okay,
people
well,
apparently have
just so
time.
you know, on last week's time walk,
Yeah.
Shorty, who has more best in slot pieces than
So,
midgets,
so your alt is your new main.
got her best in slot offhand that drops off Jaina at a 410, I think, out of her time walking cash.
Wow. Okay. I mean, it's
Just
good. It
saying.
just they're just such a grind sometimes, and it's I need guildies, and I don't want to pug these things, and I'll heal them so I can just sort of AFK through the dungeon because my groups are pretty solid anyway. It's finding the
Yeah,
time to do all these.
but not only do you need tokens for the mount, there's more pets coming in 8.1.8.1.5.
God, more pets, and yeah, I'm collecting
They're
more.
balloon pets. They're so cool. And of course, the best part, you know what the best part of 8.1.5
What?
is in the
What is
Dark
it?
Moon Fair? The roller coaster. I
Ah,
cannot wait to see this
yes.
roller coaster.
So, show of hands, if you guys played in a roller coaster tycoon back in the day, or those old school roller coaster games where you could ride the roller coaster in a first person view, those were awesome. So here's hoping that we have an awesome first person view of the roller coaster. I haven't tested it. I mean, is it on PTR yet? I don't know.
It is on the PTR right now, so you
Oh,
can test it. And it is a labor of love from one of the Blizzard developers to the World
yes.
of Warcraft community. I can't
Very
wait to
good.
see it.
Very cool.
So moving on, we've got one more thing, which is the Lunar Festival is until February 11th.
When does it start? Now?
It's already started. It
Oh,
started
crap.
last week.
Okay, rewards. Being the dirty casual that I am now, what can I collect from the Lunar Festival?
Well, the Lunar Hearthstone. So it looks like, the cool Hearthstones we've been getting every holiday.
I think so. Yeah.
You have your one from
The Winter
Halloween,
Veil. Yeah.
and then you want to have the one from Winter Veil.
Mm-hmm.
So now there's going to be one for the Lunar Festival. I suspect there's going to
Mm,
be one for all of the holidays, and I like them. They're
that's
toys.
pretty cool.
And then they also have you remember the dragons with the tail and the body and the head?
Yeah, I remember those.
They've added three more colors, so you have to go collect all of those.
So how long does it take me to collect these things?
You're probably gonna if you want to get everything, you're probably gonna have to do all of the Lunar Festival, go and visit all of the elders.
So what are you talking about? Like an hour, 2 hours, 3 hours?
A couple hours, probably. Well, yeah, with all of the expansions now, probably more like 3 hours or so.
Okay, fair enough. Okay, so
Wait, okay, and I'm already uninterested.
yeah, I've moved on from Lunar Fest. Like I don't know. I'm trying to find some other enjoyment. I've been playing some other games, and the dirty casual life. I miss raiding. Yeah, we'll talk about my raiding. I guess I've been raiding a little bit with Weekend Team, and that was fun. Right? We killed some bosses.
I think you broke my team. What are you talking about? They're all like, "Who's this guy?"
Who's this guy?
You
Why is he
laughed,
so
and
mean?
everybody started talking again. I started laughing.
Oh, I'm sure. Oh, Sparty's here. We got to be on our best behavior, and that's exactly what they
Oh,
said.
that was absolutely what they did.
Oh
It was
man.
funny. But before we start with that,
Mm-hmm.
and this question comes up frequently. And I think it's something that Mythic Plus makes even more predominant.
Mm-hmm.
Because when you talk about Mythic Plus, and especially this expansion is harder this expansion.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're spending a couple of hours in a Mythic Plus dungeon and depleting a key and maybe getting your 10 and whatnot, generally you go, okay, I want to find, we have some great people that want to help and make sure the team gets it. So I
Mm-hmm.
have one gal on our team that runs them throughout the week on her various tunes. And then she brings them to us and says, hey, let's go do a 12. Okay. And
Awesome.
if we deplete it, she's already got it and we've got our 10. So she's awesome.
Good. Good. That's great. That's a
Um,
great attitude, and that's great, energy to have.
she's fantastic about that. But within that, people, everybody wants those primo keys.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody wants that easy plus 10.
10 Natal, yeah, for sure.
And so if you see somebody that, and there's like, so her and I have done them the last 3 weeks together. So I'm waiting for somebody to come and say, hey, Midgets is only doing Mythic. Look, Midgets doesn't do Mythic Plus at all. She's the only one that's been able to get me in there consistently. Leave me alone. But with that being said, we still deal with the perception of clicks or whatnot. So I had somebody come to me
Mm-hmm.
and said, I've been having a hard time fitting in. I enjoy running with my team on the weekends, but seems like nobody wants to run our stuff or anything most of the time. I'm feeling left out, and I don't know if this is the guild for me. And I think about that, and I think about all of the people that I've talked to, and they've come to me, or they've gone to their leaders, and we talk about, because Zeros to Heroes has all of the raid team leaders in there.
Mm-hmm.
It's something that comes up. So I think we should spend some time talking about, as a player, how do you handle some of those things? How do you get involved? How do you get to know people? And as a leader, where do your responsibilities lie in helping people get groups and or helping people feel included and the whole picture, because it is a common conversation. I'm sure
Mm-hmm.
you heard it long before I even came to Death Jesters.
Yeah, it's a bit of a sad one because I mean, with Zeros to Heroes and Death Gestures, want everybody to feel included, right? And we want to make it an environment where everybody feels wanted and you want to be there. And ultimately, these guilds aren't for everybody, right? Like these guilds are for what 99 of 100 people, right? There's always be the person that just is not the right fit for it, and that is okay. So from a leader perspective, you have to see that that's okay. From leadership perspective of, well, what can you do to ensure these guys or these girls feel like they're fitting in more, and part of that is making the extra effort, right? And you know the onus is on us as leaders to reach out to people of like, hey, how's it going, right? It goes back to those podcasts weeks ago, months ago, where I would say just reach out, like 5-minute conversations of, hey, how's it going, that kind of stuff, right? To make people feel valued, because you truly do value them, and oftentimes they won't see it unless you actually talk to them. So the perception with Mythic Plus is, I mean, it depends, right? Like if it's the same group of people going over and over, okay, so why is that happening? Is it because their schedules are really lining up? Is it because they're specifically trying to exclude you? Probably not. But more than likely, it's these schedules, right? It's the familiarity is there with a lot of the DJ groups here. We have Murdoch, who's friggin' fantastic. He's got like 6 tanks. He's got crazy amounts of time. He's one of the daytime tanks though, and so he's running through his 10s and 12s and 15s with a bunch of the guildies and a bunch of the Zeros to Heroes guys, and I only hear great things about Murdoch because he's shown everybody the ropes, and he'll ask his team first, the DJ team first, of, hey, does anybody need this? I need a healer or a DPS or whatever, and people will chime in and they say, yeah, I need one. So part of it is letting those kind of guys, do their thing, right? Let them, give them the opportunities of, give those guys a pat on the back as well when they are doing those things. This past weekend, like, again, my time's been super limited with the kid and just real life obligations. I was able to squeeze out a 10 this past weekend during my kid's nap time. And Murdoch had a group going, and then Scan, one of our officers and raid leads, well, he was on his Death Knight alt, and he ran, he tanked for us, and we did a King's Rest 10 or 11 or something with a couple off specs as well, and it was fine. But we got our 10 done. We got a bunch done. Like, they were doing keys for hours, so the opportunity for people to do that kind of stuff was there. But yeah, I mean, from a leadership perspective, talk to people, give them opportunities to be involved, whether it be strats or whether it's, duties like bank stuff or farming stuff or recruitment or whatever, or just getting their opinion on things, right? That's how you ensure people feel valued, and they feel like they're fitting in. But again, conversations, sometimes it's, well, just talk about, oh, you have kids, cool. Like, kids are one of the greatest bridge makers, where everybody loves talking about their kids, or similar hobbies or whatever, right? And that's why we have some of the things we do, whether it's on our forums, we have the About Me page, or on our um, on our Discord we have the jokes channel, right? It's there to really build those bonds between the different players. But again, as leaders, there's a ton of things for us to do, and it's on us to make the effort to do some of those things.
Well, and there's some other points to this. You talked about schedules. And Murdoch's the day tank. So for me, I've never run with Murdoch. I would love to run with Murdoch. But he's done and offline by the time I get home. And so that will contribute to it.
Hmm.
But there's also something else. We have a lot of tools to touch our player base. But with 500 people, I think we have 500 active, unique accounts in
Hmm.
Zeros to Heroes. There's no way that we can touch everybody. And even if we narrow it down to just the raid leads dealing with their individual teams, um, again, the schedules don't always mesh, and whatnot. So what happens if you have a player who's coming to you and said, because the person who wrote in this viewer question has actually come to me several times over the same thing, and I've provided the suggestions, post in our area to get them, and get to know people and try running with different people, and it becomes, well, you know the tank that I like to run with has been running with other people, and I don't feel like I'm involved. So I've had this conversation. I've given them the suggestions. I can't say, hey, tank, bring this person with you.
Yeah, that's unfair for sure.
And I don't want to micromanage. And ultimately, at the end of the day, whose responsibility is it to get your chores done for the week? I call them chores.
The chores, the tens,
Um,
yeah, for sure. And I mean,
but
it's one thing
how
to
do you
be.
deal with it if it's a repetitive? We've had this conversation. We've given you some tools to do something, but you're not changing anything, and you're still expecting these groups to miraculously form.
Yeah, and so the flip side is, okay, so you have issues of mythic pluses, or there's not a lot of things to do, so your only login time is 3 a.m. at night. Like, well, what do you expect in terms of activity, right? There's not going to be a lot of active players around that time, and perhaps some of your raid colleagues only come up to raid, and that's one thing, right? But part of it is the time, and part of it is how much effort are you truly making. So if you're a player that wants to do things with your team, well, again, if there's opportunities, right? So if one of the Zeros to Heroes teams is running nonstop Mythic Pluses, I know you guys did this early on in the weekend team, where you were just rotating through people and doing Mythic Pluses and getting everybody to know each other, and that was really successful. Well, if we're running a bunch of keys on a Saturday or a Sunday, and they're looking for healers, for DPS, for tanks, whatever. They're willing to rotate everybody, and even Sparty, old man Sparty, and you want to go play like The Sims or Fortnite. Well, I mean, it has to be on you too, right? It's the culpability is on you as well to get those things done, and whether you're having to pug those things or you're going to have to to find a group. We have a huge community here to do those things, right? So you need to put in the effort as well. So it's a bit of a mixed bag. And, as a player, well, what can you do? You got to talk to people, right? And if you're, let's say, I feel left out, right? And, nobody is whispering me for keys. Nobody's saying, hey, Sparty, do you want to come along for a key? Is that really their responsibility to, whisper Sparty because he's the GM? Hey, Sparty, you need a key? I see you're online. You want me to carry you through a key? Not really, right? I mean, with from a leadership perspective, we can try 100 times to say, hey, come do stuff with us, come do stuff, we're doing stuff right here, come do stuff. And eventually, when we keep offering you these things and you don't do them, we're just going to stop offering, right? It's the same thing where if you guys have coworkers and they're constantly asking, hey, you want to come out for a beer afterwards? Like, no, I gotta go home and go play Warcraft, or I gotta go farm some mounts or pets. Aren't you going to stop asking, right? And so part of it is, you know put in the effort as well to sometimes adjust your schedule, sometimes go play with your friends, and then you'll start fitting in a little bit more, right? That's part of it as well.
Sometimes you have to reach out for people to reach out to you.
Absolutely.
All right. Well, hey, we started this about something about 10 minutes. What are we talking about tonight?
10 minutes. So it's really pertinent because it is the first week of raiding. For those of you that are raiders out there or doing whatever, this is a really good topic for you guys where we as raid leads, we as raiders, we go through our Warcraft logs. What can I do to improve? Much of this game, like sports, right? These skill games are as much about skill as they are about the mental game. And very often we think about what goes wrong in our lives and not enough about what goes right in our lives. And of course, your guild's wiping. Do we bring this right person? Do we not bring this right person? What can we do to do better? That's fine, and that constructive stuff is fine. But of course, sometimes it makes sense to analyze those bad events so we can learn from them and avoid them in the future. However, people really tend to spend more time thinking about what is bad in life than it's helpful, right? So worse is really focusing on those negative events that set us up for anxiety and depression. And you know what? We're all Warcraft players. We're all a bunch of antisocial misfits, as I say. Um, and one of the ways to keep this from happening is getting better about thinking about what went well, right? So we want to spend some time talking about what went well, and something I mentioned to my raid leads as well, right? It's a good first week of raiding. You did focus on what you did well, right? What went really well with your team? Cool. So we cleared heroic in 2 hours. Awesome. That's great. You know what? There's plenty of room for improvements, but we're not talking about that right now. What did we do really well? We had a really smooth clear, right? It was really efficient. People had a lot of activity time. Everyone got their Mythic 10s done, right? Like we did all of these things. We got, we look at our audit sheet for our raid team. We had this many world quests done thanks to the one guy who did 402. But everyone else did, a bunch of AP farming, and we're all at this level. These are the good things we've done, right? And we look at, okay, well, why did we wipe here? Because so and so died early because they were standing in the wrong spot, or the ads weren't dying, right? The fundamentals of raiding. But we need to look at more what went really well in your raids. So you know what, midgets, I'm going to task you with this first one. So you had your weekend raid here with Zeros to Heroes this Friday and Saturday. What do you believe, and I'm putting her on the spot here, what do you believe went really well with your team?
They didn't quit when you left.
Well, that's good. Yeah, I was helping the raid team out this weekend, and I had to leave for a hockey game, one of my last games of the season.
Okay, so Sparty, Mythic Raider Sparty, who's been doing this for 14 years, forgot to bring Flex Raider Sparty trainer.
Yeah,
it was rather funny. No, in serious, I think that keep in mind the weekend team is a hodgepodge of players, and we're still all getting to know each other, and we only raid 6 hours a week.
Mm-hmm.
So I was pleased with our progress, and I'll be really honest with you. I got more annoyed with the other people. So what'd you get done? Well, we got the first night 2 of 8 heroic, and 7 of 9 normal. I thought that was great for 3 hours or 6 hours of raiding,
Mm-hmm.
and us learning. And they go yikes, and I was like yikes. I told the person that said yikes to me. I said, if you tell me yikes again, I'm going to delete my tune.
Sorry, I'm sure cactus your butt.
but no. So I think that was really good. The synergy between the team is developing. We're actually getting more talkers. So I keep looking at it as baby steps, because this team was it was thrown together without a raid lead. We didn't have any raid leads. The only thing was that we had a lot of people that wanted to raid, and all of these people have stuck out and stuck with it and have helped us grow. And so that's what was exciting to me. And they also learned how to stack this week, sort of.
More or less, yeah. So things that were better. So you had more progress. So you killed one other heroic boss. You get another normal boss this week. You guys had better communicators. I noticed that on Mechatork, where I think it was Cass or somebody else was calling things really, really well. So really great communicators. And what was the last one? You learned how to stack better, right? So those are 3 things that went really well. Okay, awesome. That's the first part of the exercise of what things went well. But why? Why did they go well? That's part of it as well, right? So the exercise is, every night spend just a couple minutes looking at 3 things that went really well, or things that you did really well, and why. So of those three things, so your progress, your communication, and your stacking, why did those things go well? So I'll give you an example. Um, you have, I don't know, like my wife picked out my favorite ice cream for dessert on the way home. But why? Well, because she's very thoughtful, or because I remembered to call her and I needed ice cream, or whatever it is, right? So, but what is the reason those things were successful? Midgets.
Well, because Sparty yelled at him to stack. um, and the communication has come from them getting to know each other,
Mm-hmm.
and by encouraging them to do more things together. So the more that they continue to work together, the better they get. And some of it is we've just happened to have within the merger, more of the communicators are talking, and it sets the examples for the other ones that are maybe not as vocal.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, you have to lead by example and set those examples of, sometimes I think it was Cass that was communicating really well on Mechatork. I told these guys, to call their colors, say whose name it is, and call the color or the shape, right? And they did it really well. They took on, I mean, I don't know if we wiped once on Mechatork or not, but people caught on pretty quickly and communicated to make it really easy. Unfortunately, no Gmods
Well,
dropped, but
and you praising that um, made more people want to.
yeah, that's the thing. Like,
So that's part of the thing of raid leading. It's not always about telling them what they did wrong. Sometimes it's about telling them what they did right. Hey,
yes.
that was really great. That is probably more motivating to a player, to an employee, to your children, to tell them what they did right, because they're going to go, okay,
And they're gonna do it again.
I like the happies versus the gers.
Yes, yes, absolutely. And I've been using this training technique called whale done for decades now. It's basically how they would teach the killer whales to do the tricks and all that stuff. And the blackfish thing aside, it's through positive reinforcement. It's through having fun and playing games. On the DJ side, we look at MVPs. We say, oh, the ranged MVP was so and so tonight because of this reason. They had the best survivability, or the melee MVP was this, right? Or the healer MVP was this because they did so well. And we often talk about those things in our channels of, this is what you did really well and why, right? This is what you did really well. When we look at those things where we're trying to correct somebody, it's more gotcha moments, right? It's I caught you doing something wrong, right? It's I saw you do something stupid and that's why you wiped. Okay, well, part of the exercise needs to be what are they doing really well? And I've been guilty of this so many times where try to make a mental note of, okay, that was a really smart move. And when people would watch me stream, you'd often hear me say, oh, that was a really smart move. I'm going to talk about it afterwards, and I would forget. And part of it is, you don't want to clutter up, your voice communications. But at the same time, that positive reinforcement, those positive things go a really, really long way in terms of, making your team happy, making your guildies happy, and them doing those things again. In the same.
Well, and I'm going to step in here and
Mhm.
suggest one of the reasons that perhaps they came into the second week of for us for heroic, looking at things a little differently, is the next day I had posted, we have a little, after hour, we call it after action report,
Mhm.
where we sit and chat about the strats or what we could have done better. I said, what could we do better? And when, excuse me, when the thread started, it was, well, people need to watch videos and this needs to happen. I said, whoa, whoa, whoa,
It's
whoa,
pretty
whoa.
common,
Hold
right?
on,
Like I'm sure
hold
everybody echoes
on,
that now.
hold on. I said, how about instead of looking at what everybody else could do better, why don't you look at yourself at what you could do better? And the
Interesting.
conversation changed from that, because it's very easy to sit there and go, well, obviously Joe wasn't prepared. What are you going to do about it? Okay, well, how prepared were you? Because I came back and I said, so in all of this conversation, I'm pretty sure not a one of us played 100% perfectly. So
Hmm.
unless you're perfect, perhaps you should look at yourself.
Yeah, for sure. But again, back to the positivity portion of it is, you know, it might be really awkward just taking a couple minutes to write down, positive things that happened this week or this day, and it feels really weird because it's tough. You look at What did you do really well as a player in that raid? Well, I didn't die. Okay, fine. Okay, but what did you really do really well, right? And so even on successful raid nights, we look at, okay, I did this really well, but how can I improve, right? I had the highest survivability in the raid. I was the last one to die each time. I was the most consistent with interrupts, right? Those are good positive things. Why? Awesome, because I've got really solid weak auras, because I've made better mental notes of what to interrupt, and I've had better focus on these things, because maybe I'm not distracted with my stream, whatever it may be. You are the better player, right? And so as you get more proficient with this, and as you do it more often, well, it gets easier. Right? That's a big thing, and the odds are that as you focus on these positive things, every couple of days, every week, you'll typically be a little bit less anxious. You'll be more happier, and addicted to the positiveness that what you're doing. Right? It makes you feel as a much better person through doing these activities. So that's really my challenge to everybody. It is Monday night. Raids have finished for the week. You have Tuesday tomorrow. Look at your logs, look at your videos, what have you done really well? And when you find those things, and again, there's a million things you've done really well that week. Why did they happen? Right? And you focus on the why of, okay, it's really good week auras, it's really good boss mods. I was really on my game that day, or I got enough sleep, I was really focused, whatever it may be. Right? Focus on those things.
Well, and something else and we were talking about it when we were talking about this topic. One of the things that I've noticed with the current raid leadership, within Death Jesters, is they're in letting the team enjoy the kill. And I think that's so important because as individuals, whether it's in gaming or if it's in real life or whatever, we tend to be the hardest on ourselves.
For sure.
So for every time that you come and tell me I screwed up, I already knew that, and I'm already being hard on myself. So if you give people that's why I think it gets quiet, because we're mad at ourselves. We're mad at Joe because he keeps dropping crap on us.
Friggin'
Or
Joe
whatever.
every time. Damn it, Joe.
Joe is a bad raider. Just so you know.
Damn it, Joe.
But within that, if by allowing the team to enjoy their kill, and then coming back later, a day, depending on what the schedule. I mean, if you're raiding the next day, later isn't going to be that much long.
Mm-hmm.
But we have a week, so we can come back and talk about what we could have done better on Wednesday and let the successes of the week pile up. And I think it's really important that we need to recognize that, number one, most of our raiders hold themselves to high standards, especially within your DJ team. Because they have such strong competition and drive to succeed. And you've got somebody doing 400 world quests,
Mm-hmm.
and let them enjoy that. And I think that we get a lot of things by, just a quick, hey, you did a really good job on this. Your numbers didn't look great, but you got 13 of the 20 people which is more than you could have even hoped for. I was thinking half and half. You got 3 more. Good job. What do you do with that?
I mean, you do the best you can with what you're given, right? Like, what the Death Jester team today got Mythic Opulence, right? And post raid, it wasn't, hey, we could have done this better, we could have done this better. A million things could have been done better, but you know what? We killed it in 10 attempts quicker than the average guild. Right, so we did better, despite things struggling a little bit. In the end, there we did better overall. Again, you need to look at what is it, the silver lining and whatever else.
By the way, that's we.
What do you mean we?
I think that's the part. Well, so sometimes we
oh yes,
but it's because Joe's still the problem.
We.
It's
a we.
All 20 of you killed it 10 pulls faster.
Yep, absolutely. And that's the thing, and ultimately it is a team game where we succeed and fail together, right, as a team. And that's what everybody needs to realize, where you bring your friends up, you pull your friends up, you don't pull them down. You make those players around you better players, not worse players, right? If you're the best player on that team, that is awesome. What are you going to do about it? Are you going to bring everybody up to your level, or are you going to push everybody else down and say, oh, the rest of you guys suck because I am so awesome, and make yourself feel better? ultimately it's the attitude that goes a long way, whether you're a raider, a casual player, whatever it is.
So where do we close off with this?
Where do we close off? Well, I mean, we can close off with my tagline. But realistically, it's just, again, take that exercise. Take those 10 minutes a day to look at the things that you did really well. And if you get in the habit of doing this exercise, I challenge all of you raiders listening out there, you viewers. You don't even have to be a raider. I saw a viewer here earlier today. He's like, "Oh, I haven't played the game in 4 months." Cool. This challenge is still there for you, Roshkan. What did you do really well today, right? What were you awesome at and why? I challenge everybody to look at the positives in what they did and to continue doing those positives. I think with that, I mean, we'll say just be excellent to each other, be good people, be excellent to each other, and, treat everybody how you'd want to be treated. I think with that,
Absolutely.
we'll say goodnight. This is Death Jester, Server First Rating Guild, sticking to the raid times. Have a good night, be excellent to each other, and as always, live your life heroically. Have a fantastic evening.